Good evening everyone and welcome to the Chrissy B Show. Now we've covered knife and gun crime topics before, looking at the effects on the individuals and families. But I think it's a subject that we need to keep addressing until things change. And tonight on the show we have Glenn Fielder, who was left paralysed after being stabbed at 16, and Greg Winter, programme facilitator of an organisation called Breaking the Cycle. And also, Barbara went to the Momentum 2012 youth event where the youths are given the opportunity to showcase their talent. And I've been seeing their tweets actually, they've been tweeting already before the show, so I'm sure they're looking forward to that video as well. Now, if you would like to tweet, if you'd like to Facebook, the details are for tweet Chrissy B Show, Facebook the Chrissy B Show, and you can also call as well, 020-7686-6300. If you'd like to send an email, chris@chrissybshow.tv. So let me introduce my first guest, and that's Glenn. Hi, Glenn.
Hi there.
Thank you so much for being here today.
No problem, my pleasure.
Now, you've got quite a powerful story, and I know there's lots for us to talk about, but I'd just like to ask you, first of all, how was life at 16 for a young man? What kind of dreams did you have and things like that?
Okay, 16 years pre-injury, I went to school in East London. Academically, I was pretty average, really, but sport was where I excelled. I was an 8 and 1500 metre school record holder and district champion, but, you know, football was where my real passion lied.
When did you know you had a talent for football? Were you quite young?
From a young age, I always really loved football, and I progressed as I got older, you know, playing Sunday League football. I represented the school, Sunday League clubs, district, county level, and various professional London football clubs. And being a professional footballer was my lifetime ambition and my dreams.
So can we ask who you wanted to play for? Was that a secret?
Yeah, well, I'd love to have played with Spurs. They are
they
are my main team, you know. But I mean, I've still got a season ticket over there now. I mean, I really do enjoy it now. Yeah, and becoming a professional footballer was my lifetime ambition. So fortunately for me, when I came to leaving school age, I was offered my first professional contract as a young professional with Leighton Orient Football Club. And yeah, I was sort of living my dream. And hopefully with a lot of hard work, I would have achieved the ultimate level of my ultimate ambition of playing at the highest level possible. And yeah, it was shortly after that, I was invited to a party. It was 17th of January 1987, and I went along, had a great evening. It was held in a hall, came out of the hall as it was closing up, to be confronted by really what can only be described as like a mass brawl. About 10, 12 guys having a punch up there. Nothing to do with me and my friend. We sort of turned in the other direction, walked away.
Just minding your own business.
Minding our own business.
Just left.
Yeah. We walked 50, 100 yards down the road where there was a crowd gathered and a guy was on the floor, laying unconscious on the pavement. And I went over and said, you know, anyone called a guy an ambulance? He was passed out, blood pouring from his head. My friend ran into an ambulance, ran into an off licence to ring for an ambulance, so I should say. And while we was waiting for this ambulance to come along, which seemed like an absolute age, but really it was probably around 5–10 minutes, the fight was getting nearer and nearer with all these guys, until it was virtually upon us. And with that, I sort of stood up, still with my back to what was going on, and that is when I received the short, sharp thud in my back and collapsed to the floor. I'd been stabbed.
Gosh, and that was completely unprovoked. You were there trying to help.
That's right, yeah.
Someone else.
Yeah, just a bystander, yeah.
But why, I mean, did you find out why this guy came up and stabbed you? What was going through his head?
No, I mean, like I said, it seemed like a crazy moment. The guy's obviously had a knife on him, and there was a massive punch up going on. Thought I maybe had something to do with it, nothing to do with me. He just come and stuck a knife in my back. And then what took place can only be described as I received a ferocious beating from 6 different guys.
Oh my gosh.
They set about me with a cosh, beat me from head to toe, jumped on my head, kicked, punched me while I was unconscious all the while. Jumped on my head, jumped on my chest, my lung collapsed, and I stopped breathing. And fortunately for me, the police and the paramedics arrived at that sort of time, and they revived me and brought me back. And I was then taken to Bart's Hospital in East London, where I underwent an exploratory operation to see what damage had been done.
I'm speechless, you know, it's just disgusting what people do. It's awful.
Yeah, and they removed a piece of bone from my spine. It was more of an exploratory operation. I mean, to be honest with you, I didn't know much what was going on, to be honest with you, because I was on sedative drugs, and, you know, I was there for 2 or 3 days. I was then transferred to Stoke Mandeville Hospital in Buckinghamshire, which is a spinal injuries unit. where I was to begin 11 months of rehabilitation.
Wow.
Really, and it was in those very early days, the first few weeks I was coming around from the sedative drugs, that I began to realise that something very bad was wrong with me, because I couldn't move or feel a thing from below my chest. And that's when my parents were given the job, and to this day said it's the hardest thing they've ever had to do, breaking the news to me that I was going to be paralysed for the rest of my life from below the chest, and I'd never walk again.
So your parents had known for a while, had they? And they were just trying to build up the...
They had known, they'd been told the bad news because my spinal cord had been severed and I was paralysed, completely paralysed. And as you can imagine, this came as a devastating blow. I was absolutely inconsolable. Why me? I asked myself, you know, why me? What have I done to deserve this? You know, I felt as though someone had dropped a 10-ton weight from a height and sort of just shattered my dreams and my lifetime ambitions. Although they'd ripped my chest open and ripped out my heart and my soul, I felt as though my life was over. I felt I was absolutely gutted. The term gutted is you couldn't even sort of put into terms how I actually felt. And it was only really with the constant bedside vigil of my mum in the first few months that I sort of got by. You know.
But you must have had a lot of time to think as well. So something awful like that happened, then you've had that terrible news, and then you're just stuck. Then you can't do anything. You're just there thinking about everything that happened as well.
Of course you are. Yeah. I mean, you know, it's actually the overcoming what's been said, what you've been told, and it was a very, very, very dark time in my life. But things progressed. After around 6 weeks, I got up and I began physiotherapy. You know. And it was after around 5 months we had the court case. You know, I was up in the chair.
Yeah, how were you feeling towards the guy that had done this to you?
Hated him.
Well, the guys, because it wasn't just the one, was it?
The guy that stuck a knife in me, yeah, the guys in general, because I didn't know that we were still gathering information for what was actually happening. And the hatred I had towards this guy for what he'd actually done and what he'd taken away from me for no reason whatsoever was, I couldn't even describe it. It was so much anger and resentment there. And like I said, you know, five months later, I was still in hospital, but we had the court case. And the guy that did this to me, he received 6 years.
Is that it?
He received 6 years for an unprovoked attack. And I remember the uproar in court. It was like 6 years.
6 years?
Yeah, my friends and family, he's received 6 years. Where's the justice? There's no justice in that. You know, I've received a lifetime disability.
What did you do? What did you think?
Well, I couldn't believe it. It was, you know, I thought, so he's just given me life. I never asked for it. It was an unprovoked attack. He just gave me lifetime disability. He took all my dreams and ambitions away, and he's getting 6 years. You know, where was the justice in that? And all that did really was fuel me with more hate, more anger, more resentment towards what he'd done to me, for what he'd actually done and took away from me. You know, but like time went on, and after 11 months, I was released from hospital to begin a new life at home. I'd have my parents' house adapted, so they could sort of, you know, take the wheelchair, and I could cope. And you know, there was a lot of stuff like, you know, what was I going to do for a living now? Because all my life had been completely turned around, and I was very limited.
Because you were so focused on the football, that was your dream, that's what you wanted to do. You used to train with David Beckham.
That's yeah. Well, he was actually, David Beckham was younger than me. He was more my younger brother's friend, but he was a friend of mine as well. We knew the whole family. Lived down the same road as us. Yeah. And we've been friends since we was younger, And sort of, yeah, I mean, I played with him, took him over the park, you know, and we used to have a kick about, you know, not knowing he was going to become the person he was going to become, but there you go.
But all that now had changed because you had to kind of, how did you actually, on a day-to-day basis, cope? Because you were young, you were full of life, you still had those dreams, but now you knew you wouldn't be able to fulfill the dreams that you originally had. How did you cope?
To be honest with you, I didn't in the beginning. I sort of, I tried to put an outer shell on because I had all my loving family around me, but I just couldn't get my head round actually coming to terms with, I'm in this for life, you know? I'm never going to kick a ball again. I'm never going to run. I'm never going to be able to climb a ladder. I'm never going to be able to do the normal things that able-bodied people do. And coming to terms with that was really, really difficult. But time slowly gets better, you get a progress, etc. You get a bit of confidence and people behind you. And, you know, I sort of got my first job after around 6 months when I first came out within the civil service, where I stayed for about 2.5 years. And again, like I said, life had gone on. I then moved on to another job within an office. I worked for sales team.
Were you still thinking about your attacker though? Were you sort of
all the time?
Did you figure? Oh, so you was in your head all the time.
All the time, every time.
What did you want to do to him?
Every time I couldn't reach a cup out of a cupboard, okay, or I couldn't do the things, walk down the road and do this and run around and etc. Every time I watched a game of football, I couldn't watch it anymore because I'd well up, you know.
Yeah.
I hated him so much. I wanted to hurt him. I wanted to hurt him as much as he'd hurt me, but I didn't know how I could do it, you know, because I was very limited to what I could do. You know, it's a natural human instinct. It's sort of, that's how I felt.
So you wanted revenge on him?
Oh, big time, yeah. Yeah, but I was very limited to how I was going to get him. You know, I wanted to go around here and absolutely make him suffer for what he'd taken away. You know, especially in the early days, it was really sort of hard, you know.
Yeah. And what about your parents? How did they cope as well?
Well, I mean, the parents are always strong, aren't they? But we just take them for granted, you know. Parents are always strong, they're always there for you, and it's unconditional love. Whatever you do, your parents will always be there. Yeah, I mean, they always try to make life as easy as possible for me.
Yeah. Now, Glenn, I know, you know, you did go through some terrible times, but you did manage to turn things around, and we're going to go to a quick break now, because afterwards as well, we're going to be joined by someone else from an organisation called Breaking the Cycle, and we're actually going to talk about what you do now, because you didn't stay feeling that way. You didn't stay hating this guy. You actually did something I would describe as amazing. So we're going to hear about that after the break. But if you want to get involved as well, you can email chris@chrissybshow.tv. Join us after this.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Chrissy B Show. Always aiming to show you the happier side of life. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter.
Welcome back to the Chrissy B Show. And if you've just joined us, I've been speaking before the break to Glenn Fielder, who was stabbed when he was 16, ended up in a wheelchair. And of course, naturally, he was very, very bitter. He hated the person that stabbed him and put him in a wheelchair in the first place. He felt like his life was ruined, and he was just telling me as well that you were actually planning revenge against this person.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'd actually sort of, when I was planning revenge, I mean, you know, at the end of the day, 5 years on, I'd had this bitterness inside me.
Yeah.
And like I said, I mean, I'd gone through certain amounts of work, etc. And I met my wife, Julie. My future wife, Julie, we fell in love, we married, had 2 children, and yeah, I mean...
Talking about your 2 children, sorry, they've just tweeted actually, so proud of my dad, Glenn Fielder. You're so amazing and a role model, I love you. That's from Harley Fielder.
I love you too.
Oh, that's so sweet.
I love you too, Harley.
Well done. I'm going to cry! No, I'm not going to cry, come on, carry on, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, we sort of, like I said, married, we had children, and yeah, I sort of looked at life differently, you know. I sort of, you mature as you get older, a bit older, you know. For now I'm a father, so life is looked on in a different light, you know. And I'd come to terms with my physical disabilities, but what I hadn't actually come to terms with was the second disability. See, the first disability you see is this one on the outside. What you don't see is an invisible one on the inside, and that second disability is the anger, the hatred, and the resentment, and the bitterness.
That must have been eating you up inside. That's
eating me up inside. It's like I call it a cancer, because it eats away at you from the inside out. Yeah. And I'd lay awake in bed at night, plotting my revenge, and ultimately this guy's death. You know, I actually found out where he was living.
Oh, you did?
I did, yes. I pulled up my hand-controlled vehicle on quite a few nights, and I was hoping to catch him and run him over and hurt him. I wanted to hurt him so much for what he'd done to me. It was still deep, cutting deep inside.
Which would have made things a whole lot worse for you, right? Because you
would have done,
ended up in prison.
That's right, yeah. What would I got? 15 years for premeditated murder? I'd have been no good to my wife and my kids. Nothing at all. 15 years later, I've come out still in a wheelchair. And I gained nothing from it, you know. And there's an old saying that if you're going to opt for revenge, then you better dig 2 graves. One for your victim, and the other one's for yourself. And I know that to be true. It's a true saying. But I mean, I kept my eyes on this guy and what had actually happened and how his life had gone on, and I kept my tabs on him. And he was a persistent offender. He'd been in and out of prison over the years, you know, for various different crimes he'd committed. He was a drug user. He'd been in and out of psychiatric units. And I decided to, I looked at his life and I decided to compare his life with my life. You know, and here I was, okay, I'm injured, I've got disability now, but I was married to a beautiful lady. I've got 2 beautiful children. I am self-employed, I drive a hand-controlled taxi for a living. I own my own house. All these things that
you didn't have
pre-injury, and after the injury just happened, I was told I was never going to be able to achieve all these things. I thought we were well out of reach, so I was quite proud of myself that I'd actually gone on in my life.
Definitely, so you should be. Now we've got a gentleman sitting next to you as well. I'd love to introduce him as Greg. Welcome to the show. Now, you're from an organisation called Breaking the Cycle. Now we're going to just speak about how the two of you met as well, because you went on like this for quite a long time, even though you were getting on with your life and, you know, achieving things, like you said, all the, you know, getting married and everything. But inside you were still bitter and you were still going through these things. Now, how did the two of you actually meet, Greg?
Well, I think Glenn's got a bit more of the story to tell because he progressed, and I mean, you should tell us better, because by the time I met Glenn, he'd actually chosen a path that was quite different from revenge and bitterness, right?
How did that come about then? How was that turning point? Because it seemingly, like when you're talking now, talking about it, it's like there's no way that, you know, you're ever going to be able to move on and get rid of that hatred, because it is.
I mean, I'd actually tried everything, you know, and I actually summed his life up. I looked at his life and I compared it with mine, and I actually had a better quality life, yeah? And that's when I said to myself that I need to release myself from this second disability. I don't need 2 disabilities. The first one I can't do a lot about, but the second one I need to release, and that was the anger, the hatred and the resentment which was on the inside. I tried everything else and it hadn't worked, but I'd heard about this thing called forgiveness, okay? And it was something I couldn't even contemplate in my head.
Well, when you first heard it, did you think, I'll come off it? How can I forgive someone that did that? What kind of, because you do, that's the first sort of thing that comes. Why should I? Well, they don't deserve to be forgiven. That's the sort of initial reaction.
After all, this guy had never shown any remorse for what he'd done, and I don't condone what he did, but I needed to try and look on it from my father's point of view. At the time he stabbed me, he was 18 years of age. And you do rash things at that age. I'm not saying every kid goes around with a knife, but you do rash things at that age, you know. And I try to look at that, thinking myself as a father, would I like someone to forgive my child if he ever, God forbid, ever went and done something like that, you know. And I thought to myself, for my own sanity, I need to try this, because I tried everything else, nothing had worked. And don't get me wrong, I wasn't going to go and throw my arms around him, right, and say all is forgiven, but because I'm a proud man. You know, and like I said, I don't condone what he did, but I decided to do it and try for myself. And the way I decided to try this was by every time I got angry and I sat down and I felt a bit sorry for myself, I wouldn't blame him when I couldn't reach out of a cup out of a cupboard. I wouldn't blame him when I couldn't kick a football about. I wouldn't blame him when I couldn't do this. I'd try and find another way around it.
That's amazing that you actually came to that conclusion yourself and like actually thought about it and decided to change, because some people live in bitterness for years until the day they die.
I think maybe it comes with maturity, you know, and it was something, maybe I should try that path, you know, and sort of see if it actually worked for me. And again, it wasn't instant, it took a long time, but it was a slow progress, and it actually worked for me. And in the end, I felt as though I'd actually been released from like a 10-year prison sentence myself, you know, and that is all because I chose that path. But I actually, 4 or 5 years ago, I actually got a phone call from my younger brother, and he said, I've got some news for you. The guy that did this to you was found dead last week.
Gosh.
He died through blood poisoning, through drugs. We fought through drugs. What do you reckon, bruv? What comes around, what goes around? You know, what goes around comes around, etc.
He was expecting you to
jump
for joy.
What do you reckon, bruv? Yeah. What do you reckon? Justice. And I said, well, do you know what? You know, I passed that under the table a long time ago. I got it out of my life a long time ago. I think it's quite a sad loss of life. It's a young person that's lost his life because he chose a negative path in life. And that's what I sort of, I'm going to come into Greg now, and Greg can tell you about breaking the cycle, because when I speak to students, which we're going to tell you about, we run school assemblies, I have a powerful message that I'll give across with my story, and I'll give them a choice, which Greg can come in and tell you a bit about.
So we started Breaking the Cycle in 2008, and all we're trying to do is inspire young people and encourage young people to choose forgiveness instead of revenge. It's exactly what Glenn chose. And we don't tell them it's easy, we say it takes courage. We try to bring speakers who have real stories, like Glenn's, that is really inspirational. And we also put it in historical context, and we say, you know, look at a guy like Martin Luther King or Gandhi. These are people who chose a path of forgiveness, and look, it changed the world. Yeah. And we all see those people as heroes and role models. And Glenn is just the same, because he chose a path of forgiveness. And we tell these young people, every one of us is going to face difficult moments in our life, and we want you to be able to choose forgiveness. Yeah. And forgiveness is, you know, as Glenn's story shows, it's really so powerful, and it has these ripple effects. And violence does as well, right? And violence can become a cycle through retribution. So something really can start small, bullying, or just, you know, something on Facebook can result to real violence.
But it's horrible. It is a cycle, isn't it? Because it just won't stop unless there's people like you that will sort of end it there and say, you know what, I'm going to choose not to get revenge. I'm going to choose not to do,
That's exactly
what
right.
is expected by society to do, or the natural reaction of people to do. Then the problem's just going to carry on. But I'd just like to show your video as well, Greg, because you've got this. Let's take a look at this video of the amazing work that they're doing together.
This is the real deal. This is something that can make a difference.
Forgiveness is the key.
It was really good assembly, as they explained why you should forgive something.
At the end, when he got mobbed like a rock star,
I would give forgiveness more of a chance than I would have done before.
And just seeing the young people paying attention, if it just affects 1 or 2 lives, it's got to be worth its while.
Breaking the Cycle offers school assemblies to teach young people that conflicts can be solved by forgiveness. The message is positive, stressing self-respect and respect for others.
I was stabbed and paralysed from below the chest. And this guy who did this to me received 6 years. And I remember the uproar. 6 years for an unprovoked attack. I've got life in a wheelchair and I never asked for it. And I tell the kids my story and explain to them that against all the odds, there's always light at the end of even the darkest of tunnels.
Speakers tell personal stories of life experiences that demonstrate how conflict resolution stems from the art of forgiving and making positive choices in life.
And just to say to you guys that there is another way to resolve conflict.
Forgiveness is for everyone, but it is not easy. It takes courage. It is a process and can take a long time.
The most important thing is that you take what I've said today and hopefully in some way use that to inspire yourself.
a lot of the kids came up to me the next day and said it was the best thing that happened in their school, and a couple of them said they want to make a film about it.
When we got back to our lessons, we were all talking about it, and we said it was a really good assembly. Everyone really enjoyed it and got the message.
Fits in perfectly with what we're doing with our PHSE and our SEAL work, and I just thought it was a brilliant way to promote empathy with the students.
You're welcome to take one.
After the assembly, the book Why Forgive is offered free to students and staff.
All the best, guys.
I really admire the way you dealt with your problem. You're a very good role model.
It adds value to actually contribute towards the well-being and the future life of our children.
I would urge all of my colleagues, any police officer, both from within the Metropolitan Police or anywhere, seeing this film, it is worth going. Make your own mind up, go along and actually look at the effect it has on the youngsters. It works.
Amazing stuff. And I'd just like to read this tweet from Amanda Scott, and she says, I want to hug this man. I'm glad he was strong enough to, I'm glad he was strong enough to find forgiveness. He lived a life I'm trying to teach.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks, Amanda, for that as well. So tell us more about the program that you're running, because it looks amazing, everything that you're doing there.
Right, well, we go into schools and do about a 60-minute assembly.
Yeah.
And mainly it's speakers like Glenn telling their story and trying to be that role model for the young people and trying to tell them that they have a choice.
Yeah.
Really, that's what it is. You can't tell someone you've got to forgive, but you can tell them about forgiveness. And Glenn and the other speakers can say, I chose that path of forgiveness.
Do you find them a little bit hostile at the beginning, like, you know, why should I forgive anyone? They've done this, or they beat up my brother, or, you know, things like that. Do you find them a little bit?
Not really, because students, and I think all of us, we respect what's genuine. And when someone like Glenn or other speakers tell their story, it's real and it's genuine.
So the same as just someone going there and just talking about it that hasn't been through it.
It's not maths, it's not double maths, it's not history, okay? Where they're sitting there, they're looking at a real life story and they're looking at it, that's what happened to that guy.
And
he's getting the message across.
Yeah, and the video also mentioned we give a book to each student, and it's got a
I've
whole
got that one
bunch
here.
of stories.
So why forgive?
Yeah, why forgive? It's got over 50 stories of people from all over the world, every background, who encountered tragedy or violence, and they chose the path of forgiveness instead of revenge. And we tell the young people, forgiveness is not easy. It's actually revenge. It's easy. Revenge is instinctive. But forgiveness takes courage, and Gandhi has a really, really powerful saying about that forgiveness is not for the weak. And
that's what people think, though, isn't it? They think if you forgive, you're an idiot. You're just like, what's wrong with you? You're weak. You're not. That's the way people think. But it does take so much courage to forgive.
Yeah. And peer pressure also can emphasize that in the wrong way. That you know, kids will perceive one another as weak if they forgive. But we're saying no. There's heroes in history and heroes right now who forgive and make life better, not just for themselves, but for everyone around them. And we tell each student, you are special. You have a contribution to make to your community, your school, that no one else can make. And if you can choose forgiveness, then you'll break this cycle of violence and you'll go on to make those contributions. And it's the best thing for you and for your friends and your family. We also tell students, you've got to look for that support around you. Friends who can help you on that path, teachers, police officers, youth workers who can provide you that support, because we all need support.
Now, do kids actually read this book? Are they quite keen to read it? Because I know sometimes youngsters are not sort of into reading much sometimes. How's their reaction when they receive this book?
Well, at the end of the day, I mean, it's free, okay? No one has to buy it. We give the book away, it's free, and it's stories such as mine, in all different walks of life, and they can make their own mind up by seeing how powerful it is to actually choose the positive path in life and not take the negative path in life. Because it's, other than forgiveness as well, it's also about choosing the positive path in life.
We've got a blog, and students can go onto our blog and post comments. And I've got a few here, but many of them actually say, I took that book home and I read it. And
maybe you can read a couple for us after the break.
And these stories do inspire the kids. And some schools, they tell the students, bring that book into class, we'll read it together.
I can't wait to read it, honestly.
We actually get phone calls sometimes from parents who say, my son, my daughter brought this book home and it's changing my life as well. So that's the ripple effect.
So we're going to hear from a couple of these students. So I'd like to sort of hear their reaction and everything. We're going to go to a quick break now, but you're not going away. You're going to stay with us because we've got more for you after this. So do join us.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Chrissy B Show, always aiming to show you the happier side of life. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter.
Welcome back. Now we've been hearing Glenn's amazing story and the great work that Greg and his organisation are doing as well. But also, just wanted to talk about the effects that it has on parents as well, because obviously families get affected by it as well. And sometimes you think, my God, how on earth can anyone get over something so tragic? How can someone get over having their life basically ruined, or they think it's ruined at that point? How can they get on with life? How can they forgive and move on? Well, it is possible. And let's take a look at this video of Mark Prince, who was on my show last year. And he's going to talk about when his son was actually stabbed to death as well.
I felt this rage just surge through my body. and I just hit this. I was hitting things, and I don't even know what I was shouting. There was some police there. There was nice guys. They was trying to not, you know, control me or you know, just, you know, in an arresting way, but just trying to help me to be calm. But obviously they understood they couldn't sort of contain me or anything.
When you say rage, Mark, are you speaking about rage that you'd lost your son, or rage against the people that?
I don't know.
I
don't know. All I know is that something just came out of me. Something came out of me to hear that my son was gone.
It's awful. What did you do after that? After the initial shock?
Yeah.
Say worn off, but obviously it was hard for a long time after that.
Yeah,
how did you actually cope?
You don't know. You don't. Honestly, there's this poem, Footprints in the Sand, and all I can let people know is that I never had any control of me at the time for ages.
It's okay, take your time.
And in that time, I think that God was carrying me, because the poem talks about, you know, saying when the prayer was saying that, oh God, where was you? Where was you? And God said those footprints was me. I was carrying you, and I believed that I was being carried at that time, because I felt that I was losing my mind. I didn't want to eat. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. And listening to Tracy,
but you know
was
what,
too
Mark?
much for me, man.
After this happened, you did something really, really amazing.
Yeah.
And like, obviously this is awful what happened, and you know, it really hurt the whole family. But something amazing happened afterwards, and Mark, you're gonna be speaking to us about that. I'll just give you a bit of time just to be okay for you to speak again.
Yeah, you just never know when you're talking about it. You don't know how you're gonna react. I don't, you know. Normally, I can talk about it, and I don't always have this reaction. But you don't. You just don't know how you're gonna.
This
react.
happened 6 years ago, was it?
6 years ago. It doesn't go anywhere.
So that's the amazing Mark Prince there. Now, he went on, actually, he forgave, as you were talking about as well. And he went on to actually start helping young people. So the same sort of, maybe like the boys that would be out on the street messing around, doing these crimes, he actually went on to help them. And he speaks, he's a motivational speaker as well. He helps people with the boxing and everything. So he's moved on from that, and I won't say, okay, obviously he's never going to forget what happened, but it's not, he doesn't have that bitterness inside anymore. He's completely turned his life around, and he's helping others as well. He's not carrying on that cycle of abuse, because he could have gone and got revenge. He knew where the family were, everything. He could have done that, but he didn't.
It's amazing how you can come out the other side.
Yeah.
After time's a healer, and when you choose that path that we're all talking about, it's amazing how much you can actually give back through your own experiences, no matter how terrible they are. And being a parent as well, it's so frustrating, because they're your loved ones. It's unconditional love with your children. They could do anything, and you'll always defend them. And when they're taken away from you,
natural reaction is to do the same.
When they're taken away from you, you know, it must be absolutely terrible. Or you know, if something like this has happened to me, the frustration that they must feel, because they can't do it for you. They can't help you anymore.
And I think that clip also shows what courage it takes to be able to break that cycle of violence for people like him and Glenn and others.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of courage, and it's challenging, but we need more role models like that, I would say.
Yeah. And I think it takes a lot of courage to do what you're doing as well, Greg, with the organisation, because you are helping so many people. And you've actually got some good, let's hear a couple of the comments from the students.
It's very interesting. The students really, they love the message. They're very attentive during the assemblies. And sometimes people ask us, yeah, but does the message stick? You know, or do they forget it when they leave school? And here's a student, a year 8 student, who said, I will remember this day for the rest of my life and probably tell my children about it. So that's a message that maybe is going on to
forget, right?
from one generation to the next. So that's a great response. And I like this one from a girl who said, "I really liked the assembly today. It was amazing and helped me a lot. It taught me to forgive, not be violent, and be positive. That really helped all of us. Thank you very much. I will read the book. I don't read books, but I will read this one because it's special, and that will help me a lot. Thank you for telling us we are special. Thank you for coming."
That's amazing. It's so nice to touch young people's lives like that, isn't it? And actually, you know, I always go on about this on the show, like how I do believe in young people, and I do believe that sometimes they just need some guidance, and they need people to believe in them and to say that they're special, because sometimes they don't hear this, they never hear it. Maybe
that's right.
You know, they've got problems at home or one-parent families. I don't know what's going on, but they don't get told that they're special. They don't get told. They don't get sort of encouraged in anything. And, you know, I think that's where sometimes the problem may start as well. And actually, Barbara also went, just to bring this video in as well, Barbara went along to the Momentum 2012 youth event, where youths are given an opportunity to showcase their talent, because young people do have a lot of talent and they've got so much to give, but sometimes they get sidetracked. But let's take a look at this first and then we'll get back to their story here.
Today I've come down to Croydon to Fairfield Hall to an event called Momentum 2012. This event is to offer guidance and inspiration to young people and to their parents. So let's go inside and meet Kicks Magazine, who are going to take us round for the day. Alright, so I'm with Rough Cuppy and they're going to introduce themselves.
What's up? It's your boy Sterling Sinclair.
Don't know for the don't know, it's your dope boy Joey James.
It's your boy Kaz, done it all day, every day.
Okay, so you guys were in the X Factor this year. What part did you enter the competition and what part did you come out?
Well, we started from the beginning and we ended up we got through to judges' houses, but unfortunately we could not go to Las Vegas, so we had to leave the competition.
Okay, how do you think that like music or other art forms like dance, drama can help young people to have like a positive future?
It's all about expressing yourselves, and I think that's what young people need nowadays, is somewhere to express.
I'll say definitely have something to focus on, because when you have a love and a passion for something and you focus on it, there ain't nothing stopping you.
So have your aim, your objective and your goal. With that in your mind, obviously, you can't be derailed, so you're always going to focus on your goal.
Roughcopy.co.uk, jump on that.
So Eddie, what's your involvement in why are you involved in this event? Was it something that you chose to do, or were you invited to do it?
I was invited to do it, but you know, I gladly accepted because it's for the youths. I've got a younger brother and sister, and I can always remember when I was young, I wanted an older brother or sister to kind of just, you know, kind of inspire me and a role model.
How do you think the event's going so far?
Fantastic. It's been a great turnout. We've just had a panel discussion which got a bit heated, but you know, young people have a lot of questions that need answering. So, and I think right now they're doing the workshops. It's been entertaining as well. There's been a nice balance of, you know, serious and of course jokes as well. So I'm having a great time. I believe the young people are having a great time from the reaction. The comedy is amazing for me. I love comedy, but it's starting to open up so many different doors. Even if I wasn't a comedian or a presenter or someone who was known in the community, I would still like to do my bit. And I just use the opportunity of where I am to just have extra impact. So that's something that will always be there regardless, because I've got parents who constantly remind me of, you know, the importance of giving and empathy and understanding from people's point of view.
Coming to the end of Momentum 2012 event, we've seen some great acts and some motivating and positive talks. Overall, it's been a very inspiring day.
Okay, so you see all the talent there. So, you know, kids have got so much potential, young people so much potential, and sometimes it just gets thrown away because they are stuck in this cycle of violence and all sorts of things.
Yeah, I mean, you know, anything that's going to help kids come off the streets and do something that's worthwhile, you know, and keep them going in a positive way is always worthwhile. It's terrific work. That's why I look at right across the board with every organisation, youth clubs, etc. You know, there needs to be more of them.
Yeah.
Giving kids a direction in life.
From day one, everyone who's part of Breaking the Cycle, we've always had this Hasidic saying in mind that if you save one child, you've saved the world. And so when we go into a school to do an assembly, we always have this in mind. If it affects one person's life positively, then it was worth it.
Yeah.
And I think it does.
It is, because then that person's going to go on and help others and carry that message across.
That's right.
And you were telling me something as well about some students or people, they find it hard to forgive themselves.
That's a big issue because, you know, every student and all of us, we regret things from our past, and these videos show each student has these unique gifts and talents, a contribution to make that no one else can make. If we can forgive ourselves, forgive those who have hurt us, then we're in a position to actually do that for ourselves, for our families, our communities. Yeah. I mean,
it is awful to live a life of regrets, isn't it? And you know, people do make mistakes, but I'm also a firm believer that people can change. They can turn their lives around. Even if you've done something terrible in the past, you've hurt someone. Okay, you can't live with that guilt for the rest of your life, because you're going to end up ruining your life as well. Okay, you made a mistake. You've gotten over that. You've regretted what you did. Hopefully, apologise to whoever it was. And now it's time to move on and live your dreams as well. Because who hasn't made a mistake? I know some are more severe than others, obviously, but you know, everyone does at some point in their lives, and it's horrible to have that thing eating away at you inside.
That's right. And every time we do an assembly, we're there with the teachers. Sometimes police officers will join us, and we're trying to give a positive message to students. We know each student has their own aspirations and their own dreams, and if they choose a path that's positive, a path where they choose forgiveness, then they'll have the support and they'll find a way to reach those aspirations.
Now, Glenn, for those people now that are watching and they say, you know what, I can't see myself getting past this. I feel so awful inside. I can't ever see myself forgiving these people or ever being happy again. What would you say to them? You can look at that
okay, I mean, through experience of talking to students and with Breaking the Cycle, I can sum up, after hearing my story, I can actually sum up my story now for you. This guy had been in and out of prison all his life. He was a drug user with psychiatric problems. He died at the age of 39 years of age. He lived by the sword, he died by the sword. He chose what we call the negative path in life. Now, here's where you have the chance to stand up and be counted. I come to you and say to choose the positive path in life. You come from a first world country where you have sanitised running water, we all take for granted. You have a health system, you have an education system. It's all there at your feet. And you know, I'm a great believer in you take out of life what you yourself put into it. So if you choose a positive path in life, it will open up many doorways for you. And even if you fall off that path sometimes, because life will throw negative issues at you, always know that there will be a light that shines brightly at the end of even the darkest of tunnels, because my story that you've heard here today is proof of that.
Thank you so much. I think we're going to leave it on that note because we have run out of time. You guys are amazing. I love what you're doing. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you, my pleasure.
Thank you.
And it's great. I think it's wonderful what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
so we have reached the end of the show, but if you do want more information about this organisation, about Glenn's story as well, you can visit the website chrissybshow.tv and all the details are there as well. And also on Monday, we're going to be meeting two very successful single mums who also turned their lives around. So do join us then. Have a wonderful weekend and we see you again next time on the Chrissy B Show. Bye-bye for now.